If you had told me the first two AAA PlayStation 5 exclusive titles of any consequence would cater to the hardcore player, I wouldn't have believed you. This is the company, Sony, that launched its previous console with Killzone Shadowfall and Knack to cover the family and shooter crowds. Sure, with the PS5 we've gotten cross-gen titles like Miles Morales and Sackboy, both of which I thoroughly enjoyed, but to think Returnal and Demon's Souls were the console's prime initial showcase is surprising to say the least. Yeah, Astra's Playroom is amazing, but it's not a title for sale and doesn't need to market itself considering it comes free with the PlayStation 5, so we aren't counting that. Both exclusive games are more similar than they initially appear. They're dark, brutal, unforgiving titles with a focus on combat. Each has an abstract, depressing plot that opens itself up to those who search for meaning. And both are made from a studio with at least a decade's worth of experience in the industry, even if one of them is a remake. What's especially notable is that neither are a title I'd recommend to most people, let alone ones I'd use to mass market my expensive next-gen gaming machine. Due to their difficulty and intentionally uncompromising design, each game caters to a niche audience. All this to say that as I was playing Returnal, I couldn't get over how the game was unwilling to budge in terms of challenge. I wasn't expecting a cakewalk, but again, considering this arcade-reminiscent roguelike is the second AAA PS5 exclusive following up freaking Demon's Souls, I'd assumed Returnal would be more open to a wider audience. I mean, look online and you'll see longtime gamers struggling to beat the game's first biome after dozens of hours. These are players that have destroyed games like Streets of Rage, Sekiro, the Souls games, Nioh, and more, struggling with Returnal. That says a lot about the audience that developer Housemarque is going for. This isn't an elaborate diss on Returnal. I am completely in love with this game. It feels like it was made for me and is a serious contender for my game of the year. But I'm not blind to the fact that it didn't and will not click with many players for the very same reasons I fell for it. In this critique, I plan to break down those reasons, the combat, the story, its brilliant use of the DualSense controller, and everything else Returnal has to offer. There's a lot to go over, and it will contain spoilers, so please for your own enjoyment, play the game before watching if you're able. That said, let's get into it. Returnal is alluring in almost every way. Just look at this world, how mysterious and foreign it is, how every fragment of it plays into the game's story, which is a fantastic add-on to Returnal's addictive combat. I haven't felt this pull to a game in quite some time. Maybe the first Dark Souls is the last game to attract me like this, filling me with the desire to explore a dangerous, dark world that's ready to beat me down at any second. It's the opposite of the attraction I feel to a game like Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. That world is so bright, colorful, and fun, I couldn't put it down until it was platinumed. It's strange that games can attract us in so many different ways, but Returnal is certainly part of the more ominously attractive titles. Here you play as Selene, an astronaut working for the Astra Corporation. After hearing a distress call named White Shadow, she claims it's a phrase that she actually knows. She heads off to find the source, crash landing shortly afterward on a planet called Atropos. You quickly take control of Selene in a first-person perspective, which contrasts with Returnal's standard third-person action gameplay. We'll get more into it later, but first-person here always means you're safe and are in for a story development instead of combat. I really like the merging of these two gameplay styles. Considering how creepy and alien this plot gets, it's nice to know when to pay attention and have a great front-row view of story developments. There's no risk of missing a critical plot point in the third-person perspective, and such an idea prevents taking control away from the player as a cutscene would, unless it's absolutely necessary, of course. Anyways, Selene's ship, Helios, is absolutely wrecked. You leave through a hole in the ship, and the game quickly presents its eerie, intriguing world teeming with imaginative aliens and absolutely gorgeous architecture. What's immediately apparent to the player is just how smoothly Selene controls. Every movement or action happens the second you press a button, meaning you can interrupt previous inputs like a melee or jump attack in a split second. If you like Doom Eternal or other fast-paced, arcadey 3D games, you'll feel right at home here. but then you die. Anyways, Selene's ship Helios is absolutely wrecked. You leave through... Wait, didn't I already say this? Right, Returnal is a roguelike, meaning you restart every time you die. Very arcadey, which Housemarque is known for in its other games like Resogun and Nex Machina. Some items and such carry over each death, but the point is to make it through these biomes in one life. Doing so successfully, despite the game's fantastic control, is quite hard. As always with Housemarque, combat is the name of the game here. You'll encounter enemies of all colors, shapes, and sizes, each having a unique ranged or melee attack, and sometimes even both. Projectiles tend to follow specific patterns, be it a horizontal line, burst fire, or simply straight ahead. In the first biome, projectiles are fast, but still slow enough for you to learn and adjust. You spend time here weaving through bullets and learning how invincibility frames work with your dash. There are around 10 types of weapon you unlock throughout the game. Each has its primary and alternative fire, which you activate by pushing the left trigger fully down. A half press of that same trigger allows you to aim, and then there's the weapon perk system and a few stat changes which really flesh out the different weapon types. Take the carbine, for example. Sometimes this thing is a rapid fire monster. Other times it has an extremely low rate of fire, but each shot might do a lot more damage. As for perks, my favorite is the Hollow Seeker's Portal Beam, which warps in bullet-firing portals after firing for a few seconds, every single time. Certainly a bit overpowered, especially compared to perks like phasing rounds, which makes bullets go through walls and actually isn't that useful considering enemies are almost always out in the open, but you'll appreciate overpowered perks as you get more accustomed to the game's feel. Unlocking a perk is easy in concept. Pick up a weapon with a locked perk, get enough kills with it, and the perk will unlock and appear on future weapons of its type. There are also different perk levels as you go through the game, providing you a little customization when it comes to leveling weapons. Oh, speaking of weapons, let's talk about the DualSense. Remember I was talking about aim and alternative fire? Thanks to the adaptive triggers, Housemarque added an additional function to the left trigger as I mentioned. In most games, the left trigger just lets you aim, but here that's only half of its function. You're pressing down halfway to aim, which is easier than it sounds as there's a natural resistance there thanks to the DualSense technology. But to push all the way down for alt-fire takes some time to integrate into muscle memory. If you're new to the controller, the trigger stopping halfway almost feels like a full pull. That's how much resistance is there. You must consciously remember to pull all the way to prime the alternative fire. The DualSense emits a satisfying sound whenever you reload or your alt-fire is ready, which means your eyes can stay focused on the combat rather than the corners of the screen. It's subtle, but you'll notice a powerful vibration from left to right as your dash readies up again, for example, paired with a sound effect. I really wish I could let you experience this stuff because it's truly game-changing. There's so much Returnal communicates to you through just the controller, and intuitively understanding when your abilities are ready is unlike anything I've experienced before. Otherwise, Selene has a pretty powerful melee attack and eventually acquires a grappling hook to become even more elusive. It's critical you master every ability she has as you're constantly surrounded by enemies and they will attack you from behind. That said, the brilliant 3D sound design means you'll always know where you're getting attacked from next, so try to wear a headset while playing and you won't be disappointed. Returnal consistently forces you to make split-second decisions. A single enemy is fairly easy to counter since most stumble when you hit them and interrupt their attack anyways. But when there's 5 circling you at once, the decision of which to hit becomes much tougher and you will be punished for making the wrong one. Take on a less aggressive enemy and a more brutal one will make sure you feel that mistake. Fortunately, you have unlimited ammo, so that's one less thing you need to focus on. There is a reloading feature though, with an addition called Overload. Similar to Gears of War's reload system, you can press the fire button at a certain time for an instant reload. Messing this up increases your reload time, of course. The game does not reward staying back and shooting, rather catering towards run and gun players. You can technically do whatever you want, but you'll only progress by getting up close and personal. That's because aliens drop Ubalites, a type of currency that you can spend on upgrades and items in each world. These collectibles disappear quickly, which pretty much forces you to adapt to a close combat approach if you want to survive and upgrade your stuff. Returnal isn't easy, especially when you're still getting used to the title. Much like the aforementioned Souls games, Returnal provides everything you need to get good. You just need to do it. But dedicating those hours is not something everyone has the time or desire for. It's not impossible, and there are ways to make it easier on yourself, only those ways come in a little later than one might like, which again brings me to my main point. What made this one of the first PS5 exclusives? With Returnal's focus on retro arcade game difficulty, there's certainly an unavoidable barrier of entry to Housemarque's latest. I already mentioned the difficult combat, but the game does provide various ways to turn things into your favor. The first biome is a dark, infested forest, but you'll notice the enemies are bright blues, greens, and reds, and their projectiles or melee attacks are blues, oranges, and reds. This first area is the time to get used to the game, so Housemarque very clearly labels what you need to watch out for. Combat-related entities greatly contrast the environment, which is a nice little design choice. Avoiding damage and getting 3 kills without taking damage increases your adrenaline level, providing you extra perks up to level 5. You'll earn abilities like an easier overload, stronger melee attack, 50% extra ubelites, and faster proficiency growth, which raises the strength of your weapon pickups. Getting hit once destroys that streak unless you have a defensive item like a shield to take the damage. This mechanic rewards the player for avoiding damage rather than simply dealing it. Dodging hits has another advantage as well: the chance for more health, or integrity. Increasing your integrity is a vital part of success in Returnal. If you're damaged, you can heal via pickups on the map. However, you'll notice 3 little notches next to the health bar. If you pick up a health item at full health, one of those notches will fill. Fill all 3 to earn an integrity increase. Of course, there's still the RNG to battle. Considering this is a roguelike, some aspects of the game simply work against your favor. Maybe you'll have a run with no good weapons and die early, or a new enemy combination surprises you and absolutely kicks your ass. But as you slowly progress, you'll find consumables and stat-adjusting items, known as artifacts, that make the experience easier, though the changes are more subtle than one might think. There are some artifacts that revive you, while others simply upgrade your repair efficiency. Some increase the power of integrity upgrades or level up your proficiency, granting you quicker access to more powerful weapons. There are some drastic items that lower your dash cooldown or shoot beams of energy every time you overload. Mixing and matching this ever-growing item pool is important, so pay close attention to what's available. And I haven't even gotten into consumables. All consumables are temporary, requiring specific timing to maximize their abilities. There are typical items like health increases and melee damage upgrades, but eventually you'll find ones that send spikes through an enemy, disable all turrets in a room, or send you to a secret area full of upgrades. You can only carry one type of consumable at first, but your inventory increases to 3 slots by game's end, making subsequent runs much simpler. Most of Returnal's items are pretty useful, and actually have a frequent drop rate. I almost always have 2 or more useful consumables on hand, ready to pop them at the most opportune time. And while a few of them, like the shield, are useful on their own, you won't get very far until you learn how to combine all of these abilities, making Selene an indestructible force of nature, wrecking everything in her path. RNG is still a factor, yeah, but learning the strengths of every option helps you fight the randomness. Sometimes you'll find an ubelite drop room while at level 5 adrenaline, greatly rewarding your ability to dodge attacks. Maybe you'll get a pistol with the unlocked homing missiles perk, so aiming is less of a task. Other times you'll have the projectile portal pickup, which turns a challenging mini-boss into a cakewalk. Maybe you'll be close to death, but have an ubelite siphon and a repair efficiency item. The former gives you health for each collected ubelite, while the latter doubles all repairs. With both of these activated, you really just have to defeat one enemy and you'll basically max out your health bar. Even picking up health in specific orders is important. If you're missing a third of your health, picking up a large heal over a small heal is best, as your health will be full, and then that small heal will contribute to your max integrity upgrade. But if you picked up the small heal first, it might not fill your health bar all the way, meaning the last one fills the final smidge, ruining your chance for an integrity upgrade. Some players have a strategy where they simply clear the entire biome, picking up as little health as possible before running back to grab every single one, greatly increasing their max integrity. The battle combinations really are endless. Encounters lend themselves to your creativity, rewarding interesting loadouts, and providing enough variety to make each confrontation different than the one before. But these options only open themselves up to players who really click with the game, and as we can see from reviews, sales, Twitter, Reddit, and trophy stats, those who do click are certainly in the minority. As I said earlier, I've seen gamers who play and beat everything in the industry only to give up on Returnal early. There's nothing wrong with them for stopping, they simply don't want to bash their heads against a wall. The game isn't speaking to them, they're not making progress, and honestly, more power to those who realize this. But aside from personal preference, some key, questionable aspects of Returnal's design certainly don't help. Number 1 is the lack of a save system. Basically, you have to beat 3 of the 6 biomes in one sitting, which can take anywhere from an hour and a half to 3 hours. If you start another game or close Returnal, you have to start all over again. Now, I'm not personally bothered by this. I'm fortunate enough to be the only PS5 player in my house, and I work from home, so I have access to my game about 100% of the time. Even if the game did crash overnight while my PS5 is in rest mode and I was halfway through the 3rd biome for the first time, but it's okay. I'm okay. However, there are tons of people with families who are new to the PlayStation ecosystem that do not have that luxury. They might have kids looking to get into gaming, or only an hour or 2 a day with other people playing on the system. It's not user-friendly in the slightest. Yeah, this was the case in the 80s with arcade games, which again, Housemarque calls back to, but in the 80s, sessions weren't supposed to last hours. They were supposed to be multiple 10 to 15 minute sessions if you got good. We live in the future now, and modern problems demand modern solutions. Don't get me wrong, if someone dies, they shouldn't be able to reload a save. A save should be if a player only has an hour or so to play and then needs to leave. They can then return at a later date while others use the system, or they can even just play another game. What about saving and exiting after a biome, similar to saving and quitting after each floor and enter the gungeon, or suspending a battle in Fire Emblem Three Houses to return to later? Keep in mind, I am writing this before the implementation of a save system, though Housemarque has said they're working on a quote-unquote solution. Well, guess what? The prime time has passed. As of this writing, it has been over 2 months since the game's release. Lots of would-be players have either tried Returnal and hated the lack of a save system, or heard about it from someone else and decided the game was not for them. Housemarque's previous games were not that demanding of your time. They're usually level-based, or at the most, require a half hour to 45 minutes per session like in Nex Machina. Returnal's case is such an unfortunate situation that could have been easily avoided with some sort of alternative. It's polarizing and thoughtless, and the game's lukewarm sales can certainly be attributed to this, at least part of the reason. Second is the RNG factor. Roguelikes are one of my favorite genres. I've put dozens of hours into Binding of Isaac, Ziggurat, Rogue Legacy, Dead Cells, Undermine, Moonlighter, FTL, etc. A game with roguelike elements is a huge turn on for me. I'm used to rounds not going my way, learning the upsides of every single item and ability to try and turn things in my favor. But Returnal's early game is terribly unrewarding in this aspect. To unlock things, you kinda gotta be good at the game. You have to survive long enough to find new items and fight well enough to earn enough obolites to buy upgrades. Hell, if you can't beat the first boss, an enemy most players have significant problems with, you don't even get a second consumable slot. I'm all for challenging progression, but if this game isn't clicking with you, there isn't much to help you out. Some chests and items you find are malignant, meaning there's a chance for a negative effect or malfunction upon using it. One example is overloads damaging you until you get 200 obolites, or your proficiency rate is stunted until you get 2 multi-kills. You can have up to 2 malfunctions at a time, but a third will kill you. You never know what you're gonna get, which I really dig. The mechanic is a fun challenge and adds a risk factor to various chests and items. I like taking my chances and filling the requirements to clear a malfunction. But once again, this mechanic is not friendly to players who aren't clicking with the game. A lot of these malfunctions can be brutal, and you're playing with RNG once again. Maybe someone is finally having a decent run, but got into a fight and needs health. A desperate search may find some health, only for it to be malignant, give a malfunction that damages the user upon pickups, and the next thing they know, they're dead. There are also some parasites, which give you a negative effect in exchange for something positive. For example, one might give you fall damage while also increasing your proficiency rate. If you think that's worth the potential damage, then go for it. You can have up to 5 parasites at once, though I have to say most of them provided way too negative an effect for what they're worth. As time went on, I went through whole runs without touching these things, which sucks because I really dig the idea. This is also a really missed opportunity to provide new players with something useful. If there were more parasite abilities that lean toward the player early on, they would have a better chance at grasping the game and are much more likely to see it through. As you can see, there are so many things to be learning at once. Players that aren't instantly connecting with Returnal need extra time to learn enemy patterns, understand how consumables work, and get an overall feel for the game. Then there's the rest of the stuff I mentioned. If this challenge sounds appealing to you, great. I fucking love this game and most of its mechanics, so I'm with you. But this is not a way to welcome in and build an audience, which I think this game should have taken more into consideration. This constant battering is how you alienate players left and right. Why do most roguelites work? Because they feed you upgrades at a reasonable pace and allow you to suspend a run. Take Hades, for example. That's a roguelike that absolutely exploded in popularity, partially because it was so accessible. You can save and leave whenever you need to. But Returnal isn't forgiving in those ways. Sure, it's possible to brute force your way through the game, possibly getting to Biome 2 in a second consumable slot after 14 hours. But I doubt many players will want to do that, which is unfortunate but completely understandable, especially considering this is a $70 game. If players are frustrated, they're gonna feel gypped of their money. Even when you do unlock some items, you're not unlocking anything particularly useful until the second and third biomes, like the aforementioned extra consumable slot or the zipline, a permanent upgrade that helps Selene access new areas. It's also great in combat thanks to invincibility frames, giving it an extra layer of depth. When you die, all that carries over from your previous run is items, weapons, weapon perks, and artifacts that were unlocked. As in, these items are now in the RNG pool. You don't start with any of them though. You always start with a pistol, the permanent exploration upgrades, and whatever ether you found. Oh yeah. Ether is a sort of premium currency that you can spend on a once per biome revive station, to clear malignancy, or to trade for ubolites, among other things. But I digress. Every run is a fresh start, though a little too fresh. If you're getting your ass kicked, there's no break. You can't bring a well-perked weapon through deaths or carry over some ubolites. Aside from the zipline, there's nothing that makes combat easier or gives you any sort of advantage. So sorry if you suck at the game, I guess. You can't get out. I should clarify that these mechanics aren't too bad on their own. It's the combination of all of them that makes the game so inaccessible. And that really sucks, because the combat is some of gaming's best. It's so buttery smooth, and once you've got the right upgrades, you can really kick some ass. Unfortunately, so many gamers will miss out before getting to that point. But as fantastic as the combat is, perhaps best of all is Returnal's world. Its lore, its design, its looks, everything about it is just so damn intriguing. The layout, scenery, and architecture are dreamlike, fantastical. Some of the most mysterious spaces I've seen. Let's talk about why. Returnal consistently makes you feel tiny. Everything on Atropos is massive. The buildings, the monuments, the trees, they're mind-blowingly big. Staring up at these creations invokes both feelings of awe and fear. It's scary wondering what built them, if those aliens still exist, and if you'll have to fight them. But because you've probably never seen anything quite these worlds, you're pulled toward discovering the secrets they hold. The game brings forth emotions that Harry Potter must have experienced when seeing Hogwarts for the first time, like Dorothy seeing Oz or Charlie entering Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. It's hard not to be humbled by this universe, and it doesn't hurt that the game runs wonderfully and is just gorgeous, even if the image quality is an upscaled checkerboarded 4K rather than a native 4K. It's super easy to stop and stare at the scenery. I've caught myself spending minutes at a time just gaping at these designs. Look at this sixth and final biome, the Abyssal Scar. It takes place underwater with the transition from Biome 5 masterfully done. You think you're prepping to battle a boss like in every other biome, jumping into a long cave with your nerves on edge. Only there simply isn't a boss. You're just moving to the next area. It's a mind-blowing surprise. And this is an Unreal Engine 4 game. It very well might be the most ambitious Unreal Engine 4 game out there. If this is what devs can squeeze out of that engine, who knows what we'll see later this gen with Unreal Engine 5 titles. And even then, Returnal isn't just eye candy, it's got an in-depth lore to back it up. Selene quickly learns that this planet is pretty fucked when she relives her ship crash after every death. This would certainly break a lesser human, but Selene's an astronaut, so it's easy to believe she's one of the toughest people in existence. And she's the perfect person to guide the player through Atropos. You see, every new anything that you find is scanned into an overall database, and Selene shares a thoughtful comment or analysis with each one.
I've discovered piled corpses of a xenotype species. Likely the architects of these ruins. These could be the sentients that broadcast the white shadow signal.
I like to think her inflection represents the players, a cautious curiosity, and every item fleshes out the world a little more. Then there's the more ominous audio logs. Every single one is made by Selene, but they sound like different people with a ton of personality changes. Some are an evil version of Selene, ready to take over the planet. Others are more crazed, and some are simply analytical.
I'm staring into a breached wall. Behind the stonework are arteries of machinery, Similar in structure to the robotic sentinels. If I peeled back my skin, what would I discover hiding inside? That's disgusting. I don't ever want to experience what she has.
All are equally terrifying when you consider they're left by other Selenes, which may be from the past or future. It's impossible to tell. I also love that everything is integrated into the lore. The item shop is mysterious replicators left behind by an ancient race, and the looping is something they fell into as well. The game also does a decent job of knowing what to answer and what to leave up to interpretation, like in the main plot, for example. There are so many ways to interpret Returnal's story. Browsing online, I've seen a few popular explanations, but my favorite one is that the entire game is taking place in Selene's head. The Atropos is a traumatic response to a car crash she just experienced. This crash is referenced often throughout the game, though it's never quite clear what happens, but we'll get back to that in a second. One thing that everyone can agree on is that Selene is haunted by her past. This is shown through the first-person house sequences, where she interacts with entities like her mother, Thea, or items from her childhood. Through this, we quickly learn that Selene and her mom did not get along, as she often refers back to her mother in a negative light within these sequences.
I regret what happened, but you deserved it. We must forget to remember. We must leave to return. We must die to live. All this time. Why did you seem so frightening when you were so much less? We were both broken.
We also learn early on that Selene took this mission because she supposedly has no family.
In connections that others miss, as itemized in my fieldwork report. No, they died a long time ago. Yes, I understand it's one way. That's why I signed up. There are no attachments pulling me back.
But the flashbacks to the car sequence make this difficult to parse. For one, it's not incredibly clear if Selene is the mother in this scenario or if she's the child and her mother is driving, at least at first. I think the later plot developments make it clear that she's the kid in this initial crash.
The driver, Thea, the collective and conscious understanding, has suffered major spinal injuries. Her daughter, miraculously, of humankind's place on Earth. And thereby the universe originated from the moment we stepped upon the surface of another celestial body, survived unharmed.
An astronaut then appears in the road, causing the car to swerve and crash into the water. Both family members survived, which is proven through the preceding television broadcast. That said, Thea suffered a fatal injury and was wheelchair-bound for life. Considering she wanted to be an astronaut, this ruined her, and she apparently took out a lot of that anger on Selene, causing the two's strained relationship.
I think I am reliving my memories in that house, but not fully. They're corroded. Some parts are missing, others seem manufactured. But I can remember the torment, feeling like I was losing my mind. There's no comfort here, no safe space, and the astronaut keeps following me.
Regardless, Selene went on to become an astronaut herself. It also seems that she had a son named Helios. Some claim that it's a daughter, or that the child is Selene in the later cutscenes, but the game's IMDb page lists a male voice actor and a child for Helios' likeness, and there's certainly nothing pointing towards Thea having a son. Unfortunately for both son and mother, Selene wasn't too focused on Helios. She was more dedicated to her career, and it's hinted that she has a similar relationship with her son that she did with her mother, that she cares about becoming an astronaut and doing what her mom could not, rather than be a mother. Helios' sense of loneliness is reinforced by the cutscenes of him home alone playing PlayStation 5 or roaming the house. One instance has him trapped in the TV, which some claim alludes to him being crushed and trapped in the car by his mother, with the world going black from suffocation. Oh, and his name is on his door, which proves the connection between Ship and some male child. That name didn't just come from nowhere. In a dark twist, the same crash then happens later with Selene as the driver. Helios asks if she sees the white shadow, which distracts her until an astronaut appears and boom, crash into the water. She does try to save Helios, but is pulled away by tendrils we later found out belong to the game's final boss, Ophion. Now, the theory I subscribe to is that her child was killed in the crash and Selene can't process what happened. She's filled with guilt and other terrible emotions. As she rushes up to the surface, losing air, her brain creates Atropos, Astra, the ship, and more as a coping mechanism. The final boss pulling her away is the guilt of not trying harder to save her son. I can back this up in a few ways. For one, Selene's ship is named Helios. It crashes onto the planet each time the loop restarts, and every time you leave the first room, the words abandoning Helios appear on screen. As she swims away from the car that crashed, may I remind you that she's literally abandoning her son. While Selene is obviously career-focused, she has to have some sense of guilt for leaving her child behind. She often refers to the ship as a male throughout the game as well.
A moment of hesitation. Now he's gone, and I remain. Did I even survive the initial impact? What a horrifying life I've walked into. I turn around and notice the front door is already closed behind me, before I was even aware that my hand had locked the deadbolt. Mother, I'm home.
Also, pretty much all of the pickups are related to Selene, her childhood, or her mother. You find glyphs written in the language of the Severed, Returnal's alien race that supposedly lived on Atropos in the past before being all but wiped out, kind of like the Protheans from Mass Effect. You also get to fight some. However, translating these glyphs, you'll find that many point towards Selene's lifelong struggle with her mental health. You'll also find items related to her life, like a piano key or a toy astronaut. Why are these things here? Why would Selene suddenly find alien upgrades that fit perfectly on her suit? The entire planet is all about her. Is that not proof enough that this is all happening in her mind? Even the game's main mission is to find the White Shadow, which are the last words Selene heard from Helios. And there are countless other examples. Now, there's a point in the middle of the game after beating World 3 where Selene quote-unquote escapes by contacting Astra. We see a montage of the rest of her life where she grows old and gets married or maybe returns to her husband. What's notable here though is that she lays flowers down at the water where her child supposedly died, proving she feels some sort of guilt. Or could it be that she feels bad about her mother since that's where they crashed? It's really all up to interpretation. Then, as Selene's life is over and her body is lowered into the grave, we hear her screaming and falling. Suddenly she's back on Atropos only years later. I like to believe this is her conscious having some sort of breakthrough. While she hasn't processed everything, her brain has compiled some of the information together. It's only then that even more trauma is unveiled, forcing Selene back into this cycle. I can back that part up by the game's final ending, which is earned by beating all 6 worlds and finding rare collectibles in each one before beating them again. In this cutscene, we see Selene confronting a completely disfigured version of her mother, one that looks eerily similar to the final boss, Ophion. I believe this is the true trauma that unveiled itself after her breakthrough. Seemingly stuck in a wheelchair, her mother suddenly stands up and starts choking Selene out, bringing that trauma full force once again.
I told you to leave me alone.
Selene knocks her mother to the ground, where we learn that she's pregnant and assumedly dies. Could this be Selene denouncing her childhood? Getting over her mother for good after defeating her in the form of Ophion? What's the deal with her being pregnant? Does Selene wish that she was never born, so she kills her mother while she's pregnant? Subsequently, Selene becomes the astronaut that causes the car crash, which lends one to believe she caused it on purpose, subconsciously or not. The perspective switches once again, and we see Selene swimming out of the car by herself. She makes it right before the surface, only to say Helios, and the game ends.
Helios.
In that last scene, it appears that Selene has processed what she's done. Whether it was consciously intentional or not, she killed her child. But in doing so, she broke off any ties to her mother in her childhood. Selene accepted her child's death and overcame her personal trauma at last. She can now live her life anew, doing what she's always wanted, which is becoming an astronaut and leaving this world behind, all without a son to hold her back. But that sacrifice will always weigh on her, as made apparent by the ship named Helios. I believe that her visions are part fantastical beliefs of what her future could be like, as well as her brain processing everything that just happened. I thought about this a fair amount, doing lots of research online and studying up on everyone's interpretations. Coming to this conclusion was no easy task, and even then there's tons of stuff I didn't touch on, like everyone being named after a Greek god or Selene having 2 eye colors. There's really so much. But as far as I can understand, none of these theories disprove or dismantle my thesis. They only add to the game in other ways. So the point is that this plot is awesome, and everyone can take it in their own way. Unfortunately, there aren't many people who will get to see it through, and I think that's a genuine shame. A shame that could have been remedied by just a few tweaks from Housemarque. Now, before you say it doesn't matter if they cater to everyone, note that I'm viewing this game through the lens of an early PS5 exclusive. That's when it was released, and that pressure certainly affected the game's reception. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. Players were looking forward to another PS5 only game, and many were left disappointed. Surely that will change as the library expands, but again, Returnal's most prominent time, its release, has all but come and gone. That's not to mention the game had various save-ruining bugs in its launch window. I ran into a few myself, like the game crashing while in rest mode or doors failing to open, causing me to restart a run. But I had so many positive experiences compared to these negative ones. I died a couple of times in the first biome, once in the second, a couple in the third and the fourth, but beat the 5th and the 6th on my first try. That's not to mention I beat every boss on the first try except for the very first one, even if I didn't always challenge them on my first attempt through the biome. I didn't find the game too difficult, but that's thanks more to my playstyle. I obsessively searched every biome to find upgrades. Sometimes I'd switch to the claw playstyle to pick up items like health while fighting, keeping a thumb on the right stick so I can always aim. I say all this not necessarily to brag, but rather to note that some games simply click with some and not with others. Sure, some players who don't initially click with the game will push through and get it, but people's time is valuable. There are so many games to play nowadays that, again, most people won't bash their head repeatedly against a wall with just a small chance of breaking through, even if that breakthrough is certainly worth it. I firmly believe anyone can get to the point where, unless you're really unlucky or get distracted, you can finish full runs without dying. But to do so, a player has to believe in themselves first. And to believe in themselves, they have to actually, be able to get through the game. I'd like to say I have an answer to my question. Maybe it's because Sony wants to cater to hardcore players first. They know that the casual audience will buy a PS5 if they get the chance, otherwise being sure they'll play games like Sackboy and Miles Morales on PS4 if they can't find a next-gen console. But as of now, it's generally hardcore gamers that have the PS5, players that pay attention to every single release optimized for the new console. That said, this decision would have to have been made long in advance, before we knew a pandemic was coming and consoles would be so limited. So that kind of defeats my point entirely, but it still begs the question. Why did Sony release such a hardcore game so early on? I'm happy they did so, but I know I'm in the minority. If you have any ideas, please discuss it in the comments below. I'm quite curious. Anyways, that's about it for Returnal. This game is certainly on my Game of the Year list. I was consistently in a sense of awe and wonder, obsessed with the game until I could finally finish it. I stayed up till 4 AM on a weeknight to do so. My work certainly suffered the next morning, but it was so worth it. If you prefer difficult games, be sure to check this out. I highly recommend it to those curious. Try and stick it through the first biome. You'll be hooked. Thanks as always for watching. This video was a beast to make and I'm quite proud of it. Next I plan on doing either another PS5 game like Bugsnax or starting the classic version of Resident Evil 2. I decided I won't do another Final Fantasy video until I finish another Resident Evil one so the series don't become too unbalanced. Oh, and thanks for 200 subscribers and for all the comments, guys. You're all really awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.